My name is Susan Howley, and I'm the Director of Public Policy here at the National Center for Victims of Crime. On behalf of the entire project team, I want to thank you for joining us today to learn about this first ever national census. I'll be providing some basic background information on the national census today. As you think of any questions as we go along, go ahead and type them in that Q&A box down at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. All of you will be muted today, but I will pay attention to the questions and we will get to those at the conclusion of the presentation. This project is supported through a cooperative agreement with the Bureau of Justice Statistics at the Office of Justice Programs in the U.S. Department of Justice, and we really thank them for their support. The impetus for this project grew out of an initiative of the Office for Victims of Crime at the Department of Justice. Vision 21 took a careful look at the national response to victims of crime and abuse. Through literature reviews and focus groups, they identified new areas of focus for the field moving forward. One of these was a need for better research and data about what we're doing and who we're missing. So the Office for Victims of Crime worked with the Bureau of Justice Statistics to start addressing this need. This census is part of BJS's efforts to enhance data collection on victim service providers and victims. One of the things that BJS is doing is amending some of their long-standing data collection instruments. Many of you are probably familiar with the National Criminal Victimization Survey, the household survey that gathers basic crime data. That is being amended to include some basic questions about access of services. They're also using the ongoing law enforcement survey and the prosecutor survey and a new hospital-based provider survey to include some questions about response to victims. But this project involves a national census of victim service providers. Initially, the project was going to conduct a national survey of victim service providers to get at a lot of the questions that we all have about the victim services field. This includes things like what standards of service are we all using, how does the diversity of our staff match the diversity of our clients or the victims that we're serving, what kinds of case management are we using. But we realized that we could not do that until we had a basic, stronger understanding of the victim services field. And so we're starting with this national census. Let me introduce the project team to you. The project team is made of 3 national organizations that are all combining their strengths in this effort. The first is the RAND Corporation that brings analytic and qualitative evaluation expertise. Second is the National Center for Victims of Crime, who many of you have worked with us over the years on various efforts to improve the response to victims of crime. And we're working with NORC, the National Opinion Research Center at the University of Chicago, who brings an expertise in survey administration. But throughout this whole project, we have received the advice and assistance of 2 other bodies of professionals. One of these is the expert panel. This is made up of 12 victim service professionals and leading researchers representing a broad range of perspectives. It includes community-based victim services, justice system-based services, child-focused, violence against women-focused, victims' rights-focused, VOCA administrators. They all helped us to define the field, figure out who we were going to reach out to, and have been along for the ride through various survey drafts. Then to further broaden the perspectives that were contained in this project, we invited several dozen professionals and national organizations to be part of a project input committee. So all along, we have tapped into their expertise for answers to specific questions, and they have helped us identify sample agencies or professionals to conduct cognitive testing of the instrument. We are very proud to say that this project has the support of many leading national organizations, and more are being added to this list every day. Now, with that background about this project, let me get into more of the details about what it involves. The goal of this project is really to define the field of victim service providers. So this census will tell us how many of what kinds of providers are out there, what types of services are they making available, what are their average budgets for victim service providers, what are the funding sources for victim service providers. We have really worked diligently over the past more than a year to try to compile a list of people who will be invited to participate in this national census. We're trying to reach everyone who is intentionally providing services to victims of crime or abuse. That includes traditional victim service providers, whether they're community-based programs like rape crisis centers or domestic violence shelters, justice system-based providers like those based in a corrections department or prosecutor's office, multidisciplinary service providers like children's advocacy centers, but also others that have victim service programs. That includes legal service providers that have special programs to help domestic violence victims get protective orders or to work with fraud victims. It includes hospitals that have special programs for sexual assault victims or victims of gunshot violence. It includes adult protective services and child protective services where they are incorporating victim services in their work. To compile this list, we started with the National Centers Directory of Victim Service Providers. We brought in OVC's directory. We have reached out to other federal funders to try to get their lists of funded programs, and we've scoured state directories of service providers to compile one master list of people that will be invited to participate in this census. So let me talk about what you can expect. We already have the first batch of invitations in the mail with a link to the electronic survey. Most of you will receive an invitation to this survey in October. Those of you who also receive an invitation to the National Network to End Domestic Violence's annual census will receive your invitation in November. We did not want to either cause confusion or overburden that group of service providers by issuing an invitation too close to the other census that they just participated in September. So by mid-November, all of you should have received an invitation. Where we have an email address, program directors will receive an email invitation as well. We also may reach out by phone. While the census is designed primarily to be an online instrument, we have the ability, and you are welcome to take it via phone or to request a mailed copy of the survey. Really, whatever is convenient for you, we will make sure that you have the option to complete the survey that way. How much time and effort do we expect this to take? In the pilot test of several hundred agencies, most people were able to complete it in under 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes. You'll note as you go through the survey that many of the answers allow estimates, so you don't have to reach into your files and do calculations. We're just looking for good estimates of what you're doing. And you may stop and restart the census at any time. We'll be asking who you are, where you're based, whether you're a freestanding organization or you are part of some larger organization. Let's say you are a campus-based service provider, or you are based in tribal government, or you're a military service provider. So we want to find out where you're based. You want to find out the basics of who you serve, victims of what types of crimes or abuse, and do you focus on specific subgroups of victims. We also want to know what you offer. and we'll be asking just about the basic types of services. You can imagine the struggle we had here trying to make this census manageable and not take too much of your time by listing 100 different options for services, but try to capture the broad categories of services that you are providing crime victims. Then we'll also be asking some basic questions about your staff size, your general budget information, the types of questions that will just help us to understand the categories and the groups of service providers that are out there. You can expect to see the results of this census by next summer. We will make the findings publicly available through reports and presentations, and we are hoping that through this exercise, we'll also be compiling a comprehensive national directory of service providers. You'll find as you complete the census that at the very end, we'll be displaying some of your basic information, the name of your program, your contact information for the program, and the basics about what you provide, and asking your permission to include that in a national directory. And now, if you have any questions, please enter them down in the Q&A box, or if you have questions that you want to ask privately or ask later, please note my email address, showley@ncvc.org, and I will be happy to answer them. So let's see what kinds of questions we have.